Thanks, Mark. Good evening, good morning. It's past 12 already. I'd like to thank, first of all, the FRIST, Susan Edwards, the director, Mark Scala, who did a great job working on my work, my ideas, and became his ideas, our ideas. And I'm really happy with the selection and the choices he made. Also Amy Jeremiah, who did a wonderful job handling the work, trying to bring them all here. They were heavy stuff, difficult to bring, lots of bureaucracy, time-consuming. Thank you, Amy. Also the designer, Michael Brechner, did a wonderful job. Great to work with the team here. Thank you very much. And also Christina Colucci for the wonderful design of the gallery guide that I really like. And thank you, Mark, for your essay. I really like it. So it's been great to be here. We've been talking about this show for a long time, since my lecture at Vanderbilt. And I was very excited to be in this great museum, beautiful architecture. And our conversation began at Vanderbilt and extended outside of campus, which is really the focus of our project, our exchange project, to be able to work with artists, not only in class with students, but also expand our ideas and try to have the work for the communities, both here and in São Paulo. So Vesna now has a show in São Paulo at Passo das Artes, a group show about archives, really very interesting exhibition. She made a very nice installation, which will be there for until December, right? And also Ramiro is coming to develop a project with Mark Hosford, which is also very exciting. It's an urban intervention. They're going to build bicycles with sounds, right? And they're both working with students on that project, and the Curb is also sponsoring part of it. So it's very nice to be here. Thank you very much. So I decided that I would show you a lot of images, tried not to talk so much, and show you the work that I have been producing in the recent years. I have to apologize for the design and the font, because when we put this whole PowerPoint here, it changed a little bit. So the fonts are smaller, and they're not the ones I've planned, but I guess it's okay, we can go ahead and see it. So for this talk, I decided to show you some works that are fundamental to understand this exhibition. I'm not going to show all my work, although it's quite a bit here to see. I hope we can, have the time to do it all the way through. I'm going to talk about the mirroring experience and why that is, mirrors are very important to understand how we behave nowadays, and also the mirror experience in relation to how we look at the past, how we look at the future, and how we look at ourselves today. So I'm also going to talk about Niemeyer and other landscapes, Niemeyer's landscapes through the mirrors, and also the way he orchestrated the relation of inside environment and outside together with Marx, and created his utopian kind of architecture. I decided also to show you more works that I use text and talk about how I started to collect expressions of everyday life and use that in works, and also to relate to the codes that we need to navigate in contemporary life. And the other topic very important for me is the maze and the tower, the labyrinth, as you can see here in the exhibition. And I use that to talk about the floating world, the instabilities of the floating world. And also another topic is how the work is always trying to get to touch on the ideas of landscape in nature, but create a fictional landscape that is able to create some kind of critical experience for the viewer in relation to reality. So that's exactly, I hope I can go through this, through the work and show it to you. I also would like to say that I'm very interested in always talking about how I make the work and why I choose the materials I do, because they are strictly connected to the concepts and ideas of the work. I really like to build things. I really like to go into industries and to reverse the industrial processes, go into industry and have them make work by hand instead of going through the production line. So de-accelerating the process in the industries is very much what I do. So you're welcome to ask me questions about that after the presentation. So I'm sorry for the font again. I'll say that many times, but I can't start talking about my work if I don't thank people who collaborate with me all the time, especially the photographers, because without them, I wouldn't be here talking about my work, especially because I do a lot of installations. They are there for sometimes 4 weeks and then they're gone. And I really need to, if I want to see my work again, I only do that through videos or photographies. Also, Pedro Pérez Machado, who has done most of the digital work, like the modeling and the 3D Studio Max and all the videos and what you see here, the installation that he worked on with me. And the composers who have done the sound pieces for the show. Brian Siskind is the first here, because not only because it starts with B, but because he did a great job for the piece that we have shown here. Eduardo Tilibra, Pedro, Ruggiero Ruschione, and Wilson Sukorski. Okay, thank you to all of them. So the modernist landscape, Oscar Niemeyer and Roberto Burle Marx, the mirroring experience, rotation, suspension, and delay. I'll start with Pampulha, where I was born, a totally constructed landscape, and to me, nature is a construct. And Pampulha, since my early ages, was a point of reference where I grew up around Burle Marx gardens, and the relation of inside and outside spaces totally opened up the idea of what architecture is and made me really experience architecture and art and landscape gardening much before I had any contact with art. So this is a club built by Niemeyer on top of a hill overlooking his own creation, which is the Pampulha complex. I like to show this project because actually it was done much years later after he built Pampulha, and he never went there. He sent the plans for the construction and only visited it 30 years later, and he said, "This is really good." So it's really nice concrete, how do you call it, platform ceiling that stretches all along with ballrooms and the swimming pool. And this is what people on top of the hill on that club would see down below. The Pampulha church that was closed right after its inauguration, the ball house on the other side where the fancy people, VIPs, would go to dance, and the museum, which was built here to be a casino at the time. And casinos were forbidden about 2 or 3 years after the inauguration of the whole complex. So at the beginning, this whole complex became a failure in a way because Mineiros didn't know how to swim or how to sail. This was a yacht club. This is still there, but they were not very fond of sailing. Casinos were closed, and also the church was closed by the church. It was too modern for them to handle it. And of course, this is a postcard. This is a very special place, and it's one of the most interesting, in my view, projects of Niemeyer. with the lagoon surrounding it, and this pond made by Burle Marx outside. So the whole building is reflected all the time on both sides. It's all glass, and inside there's this huge mirror wall. And it's very interesting because it's a modern architecture in a Baroque state. Minas is one of the most traditional states with a very long history of the Baroque period, Baroque architecture in the colonial periods. And so inside what you see, you have this really amazing, intense reverberation of all the columns and the mirrors. And it's really very interesting how this pure architecture, very rational, becomes something very almost overwhelming, irrational through the mirroring experience. So this is the Bear Museum. When I arrived, I did an exhibition there. This is the floor, the plans for it. And as you see, they're remodeling the whole space. And I show this picture because Niemeyer really made use of mirrors a lot. This is in Brasilia, one of the buildings. There is a mirror right here. And the idea of entering a space and looking back, looking to the past, I mean, you look forward, but what you see is what is passed behind you, is what became very interesting to me, you know, how we're able, with the mirrors, to look forward but see what's past. And that was what led me to make many uses of mirrors in my work, also to question the utopias implemented through these projects that Niemeyer made at the time in the 50s and 60s. So I made an installation where I made this little car where people could ride the car. It has a very slow speed, and you would travel along the exhibition where I implemented these prosthetic elements, like from public spaces. And the car had earphones and this lounge music, kind of sound pieces that you pretend, you feel like you are at airports or taking off on a plane, go on a journey. And this idea was very important to me because it gives you a sense of empowerment, that when you travel, you really feel really good to be, you know, in this adventuring, going to other places in other cultures. So it's also meant to criticize some kind of VIP. This is an internal criticism about our biennials and how the VIPs ride on very fancy golf cars throughout the pavilions to see the art, and normal people can't do that. So I made special aid cars for everybody who wanted to see the exhibition. But it's also an experience of dislocation. There are sound pieces that become different landscapes, and you are projected into another time and space. So the experience of delay comes from hearing the music, listening to the sound of being in another place and looking at this landscape, and nothing really matches. So you have to really process this kind of experience where all the times are collapsed in one single experiences. So for this work, I made the seats, which I call Niemeyer columns with seats, straps, handles for Niemeyer columns, and carousel, and seats to overlook the landscape. And I call them structures to hold the body or structures for the body field. And they all meant some kind of experience of suspension and delay, extending time, looking at the landscape. I also placed many mirrors in the space where you could see the landscape from outside, inside the building. I did a rotation, making facsimiles of Niemeyer's columns and took them into Paulo Mendes da Rocha's building, creating this kind of strange situation where Niemeyer was inside Paulo Mendes da Rocha, playing with this tradition of architecture in Brazil, two architects and contaminating one architecture with another. I call this rotation operation. And in the back, I placed what I started to call Niemeyer wall. So I made the Niemeyer wall, the mirror, as a piece, calling them, naming it Niemeyer wall. And so I implanted all these processes in Paulo da Rocha and transforming the whole gallery into almost a subway station, but which was all the functions were totally erased because nothing happened. And then, to me, I think that these installations became almost like still life, life that was suspended, life that didn't really happen. You knew everything, you knew all the equipment that was placed in there. They weren't really works of art. You didn't know what to do because you knew them from subway spaces or airports, but what do you do when you get into a museum and you don't find the museum? It looks like something else. So reality is almost erased from you, from your experience, and you have to think it over again. So if we are specialists in the city and we know how to go by and to do things and to use the codes, in this situation you have to think about it. What do I do next? And where do I go? Where am I? Why is this here? And what is the life of the museum? So the mirrors also had this function of questioning the status of the museum practice, and also making you look at it in a different way. So Niemeyer wall and other landscapes became a point of interest for me, and I started to make these works, like the stair. It's called Exit with Niemeyer wall, which was placed. The Exit was based on old airport stairs that were just there on the landing ground, and I went to the airport, measured all the stairs, and I made my own airport chair. And on top here, there is a headphone and a sound piece. And the person goes up, and immediately they have to decide what to do. Do I go up? So usually people want to go to hear. They think it's music, but when you're up there, what happens is that there is the sound of a reporter who, at 6 o'clock from 5, every day now, at the time it was the beginning of this trend to have helicopters to go up with a reporter to tell you about the traffic jam. And we were totally jammed in the city, didn't know where to go, so they really helped us to find our ways. But I got the soundtrack from the radio station, and I removed all the music programs and all the commentaries, and I had this really intense, almost apocalyptic kind of mapping of the city. Could you put it a little louder, please? So he is telling you what's happening in the city with all the accidents, what is happening, all the problems, and you're totally jammed because you have to have your windows up, and things really happen, and you have to protect yourself. So what happens in the piece is that you're up there, your eye level are very high, and you have the mirror, which is far away. So you look at a landscape that it's your own environment, but you project yourself to this place where you don't belong. You're there, but you're not there. So there's this confusion and collapse of time when you experience the work. So at this place, I covered the whole octagonal architecture with mirror. And it's kind of insecure to be up there because your hands, as you see, I did the trick thing here, the handles don't follow your height. So once you go there, you have to make up your mind, do I go forward or I stay? And so the work is also always asking you what you want to do. Of course, many people never went up, other people came down, and the ones who go, they really have to be responsible for their own act up there. And also, I think it plays with the idea of the pedestal for sculpture. You become the work. You become on a pedestal, which has a lot of meanings, like the catwalk. You're being watched. People are watching you. So you're caught in the act of looking at this utopian mirror. So there were many ideas behind each detail of the work. This is another situation where I showed 2 stairs and a mirror on the floor. And it's based on this work that was, it's called Gambling, reflecting the Bear theater that was during renovation. This is also a piece with called Middelburg Airport Lounge with Niemeyer wall. It's a video piece done in Middelburg. And as you see in the back, there's a mirror wall. That's the Niemeyer wall. This piece is called Gambling. I placed many columns with seats, the turnstile in the entrance, and the entrance is right here, if you can see it, and near my wall. And I think of the work as a trap a lot of times. And I like to think about this idea of the work of art as a trap because it means we, art is supposed to give me a lot of work because I believe that art has the power to transform and to raise consciousness. So the way I approach modern architecture is a very critical way. It's not celebratory because I know how important it has been for Brazilians to celebrate architecture because through architecture we have placed ourselves in the world. With Brasilia and the drive to become a modern country and a country of the future has been, the ideas that I was brought up with. But at the same time, we have to question all these ideas and really think what is really the result of this whole project and how far have we really reached. So also the use of text and in what? A reality as a human experience. At a certain point, I started to not only use the mirror as something very important in the work, but also to collect expressions that were I found that we really use some words and expressions as a means to not only to communicate, but to navigate in contemporary life. And the exhibition that the rotation I made, the exhibition from the Casino to Paulo Mendes da Rocha, that exhibition, the exhibition at the Casino was called Porto Pampulha, Pampulha Port, because of this, there was an airport there, it was a touristic area, and there was so much water, and I wanted it to be not an exhibition, but a space of transit, and that we immediately recognized that as a space of transit. And when I took the exhibition to Paulo Mendes da Rocha, of course, it wasn't a port. It's a bunker. The architecture is underground. You have no contact with real landscape. I called the exhibition Relaxovisions because I wanted to refer to this idea of relaxation that we are so about the demand that we always have to be relaxed and decompress the tensions of life. So Relaxovisions became in Cuba Visiones Sedantes, where I just created a lounge to surveil real life outside. And those are people who sell books to tourists in front of the library, the empty library. And then I made a lounge with this sound piece, with a piano and real flowers. And I also was able to do this work in São Paulo, a little more sophisticated. And this is really when I think that the work, the installations become almost still life, because nothing really happens. There's no life, there's no transit, there's no plane, nothing's going to happen. There's not going to be a concert. And what exactly do you do in this situation? You know, you stop the flow, you stop the acceleration of life, and you have to think about it. So everybody would go and ask, where is the concert? When is the concert? Is anything going to happen here? And I placed a mirror wall that made the most important avenue become like a labyrinth. This is what I called Ana Maria Tavares wall for Niemeyer. It's a contaminated mirroring facade, a false facade, as if it were a building with written words like credit card, relaxovisions, visiones sedantes, sexo, lexotan, which is a pill to go to sleep. And I engraved this on very reflective colored steel, and the steel changes as color touches it. I continue using and collecting these words, still knocks, credit card, visiones sedantes, printed, engraved in colored stainless steel. Still life. Sparkling water, still life. Sparkling life, still water. Desire, deserved delight. This is desire, delight. This is made in Nepal. It's a real pure wool and pure silk. You can't really read. It takes a time for you to read desire, deserved delight. And this is stainless steel. I really like the contrast, you know, and the fact that you can't really read. It takes time. You have to really work hard to see. This is also another piece, mantra. I call the series mantras. This is gold and bronze. Also pure wool and silk. And it changes colors as you move around. This was done in Holland for a sculpture festival. There were 7 of them on the ground, marking the water and the most important energy fields in the park. And this is called Crystal Waters, where I wrote all the springs of the region. It was related to the work, which started with the basic question where all the water comes from in the city. I mapped out 83 springs, and I realized that in the Middle Ages they used dowsers to find water in order to build their mills for production. And the city became very rich because of these mills. And so I did the same thing. I mapped out with a dowser, I mapped out all the springs of the city, and this piece has a name. It says, sparkling water, still life, sparkling life, still water, desire, deserves delight, and there are 83 springs written in there. We also made this huge lace palio that was used in a procession for the inauguration of the exhibition, and in each of these 10,000 laces, there is the mantra written in it. And then the Curler Miller invited for an exhibition. I took these pieces there, and they actually bought it all for the collection, the stones and these pieces. This is called Fortuna en Recusas, fortune and denial, and the image of a floating world. And it's also in plexiglass, as the pieces you have here. And this is air conditioning life in a different installation without the capsulas. This work is a series of 7 sets. Each one has 7 pieces. They're all different because I changed the layers of the color layers, the layer of colors. And I also went to the industry to make the colors, to be very subtle in the, the way I wanted. So there you have the capsulas. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about the Labyrinth and how the piece you have here started. I've done, since the 80s, I've done stairways, and they keep coming back. And at a certain point, I did an intervention in an old building where I constructed this maze here. And it was really amazing because we cut out it was an abandoned tower that used to be a jeans factory in the 50s. And 7-story high, no, 7-story high, and I was able to work on 3 floors, 3 levels. So we cut out the concrete to place these spiraling stair and create a maze that you really didn't go anywhere. All the platforms were suspended from the floor, different heights, each place. And of course, people could get off if they got really dizzy or sick. I didn't want to be mean. But you actually didn't go anywhere. So after that, those are the renderings. I did in Singapore an outdoor with scaffolding near a shopping center that never closes in the busiest area. And I had a really hard time to find a natural area, like this kind of situation in a city center because it's all constructed. And I made this maze for nothing. And actually, the inspiration came from the idea that for Singaporeans, I think landscape is like a photograph. They really don't relate too much to nature the way I imagined. And also because scaffoldings are everywhere in the city next to a building in construction. So my idea was just to remove the scaffolding for no function at all. And everybody kept asking me, why are you doing this? What do we do now? And I said, well, nothing. And so I just wanted it to be as high as possible so you could reach the treetops and be very close to them. So that's what we did. And so it was just a walking through experience near the treetops. That's the highest point. This is in the Royal College, the gallery there. Scaffolding, really bare and strong compared to very delicate works around. It was quite an interesting experience. Everybody had a lot of fun. All the artists really liked it. We were all doing things that one work overlapping the other was about. It was called The Straight and Crooked Way. It was all about a certain strange experience in the gallery. So I broke through the glass. We removed, now we're crossing the glass right here to enter, going from the outside to the inside, and there is a mirror. If you turn here, there is a mirror, and we removed the glass so the scaffolding would go in, and I wanted it to be just like in construction sites, not polished or anything like that. That's Makuga. And the mazes, worked out in digital renderings. And then this work, Airshaft, I've done a lot of things with them. They started as the film you see here for the installation. I also did printed images. And I did Tautorama very recently, which is an installation where I placed these virgin nature black and white film shot between the wars by a captain who used to go from Hamburg to Buenos Aires, capturing all these images. And it's really strange. The way I edited it, they're very slow, and the images of these landscape, you recognize it's a tropical landscape, but you don't get a sense of where exactly it is. And on the outside, there was this huge wall with a video, and on the inside, as you see, I made this curve, really beautiful and long curve, and opened up the windows so you can see the the landscape outside. I have to say that this building is used for most video installations and technology exhibitions. And it's most often closed all the time. Nobody sees what's here. So it was quite a surprise for everybody to see this open space. And most interestingly, I think that this is about artifice, and this is what we call nature. And it was interesting to see almost how these things merged and looked like the same thing. And also, what was nice was the different piece that it appears to be every time light changed. This is printed. The images of the video you see here, I took them and I printed them on aluminum, reflective aluminum. So the landscape outside is projected inside. The color of the landscape also hits this curved wall, and it's a strange feeling. I think Mark saw it, right? He was there in São Paulo to see it. I really like this because the trees here have the same color hue, the same quality as the steel here, the poles. And it's like, is it the same? No, it's not. But it's, again, the idea of thinking about nature and what is nature? What do we call nature? So these are the things that intrigue me. I really like this. So this landscape at this space, it's like a junk space. This is a nice name because it doesn't have any status. They want to hide it. They don't want to do anything. And the building is high, so it's like you're floating and you see this landscape that goes really far beyond. And it's there like a junk. So this is why I decided to celebrate it in a way. So the fictional landscapes between past and future. I will show really quick the images of the installation. I just want to say that I had the opportunity to work with archival material, films by this captain who traveled between the wars from Hamburg to South America. And it was the first time these materials were used or presented. It's called Enigmas of One Night with Midnight Daydreams. I made the seats in a company who make night buses and also the cabins. So these are all parts of buses that we have a lot of night buses. It again. Otherwise the sound is going to mix. I don't know what's wrong.
Graças à existência dos oceanos. Sem eles, o planeta seria insuportavelmente quente durante o dia e glacial durante a noite. Os oceanos absorvem a energia solar, a deslocam em torno da Terra para depois liberar o calor na atmosfera.
want to say that Enigmas of One Night was a very important piece for me because it was the first time I used archival material, and I made a reference to the past, very objective reference using the film. And I edited it in a way that I had two projections, but it was a circular edition, so the image would start and go in a circular way. The sound piece was created by asking the stock exchange market, the future stock exchange market, for all the recordings from 1 month of selling goods and dealing in the stock market. I wanted to associate the idea of this captain coming and bringing goods back and forth from Europe to Latin America, and the way we negotiate goods nowadays. And so there's no music, actually. This is sound of people selling and buying things in the stock market. And all you hear is computer manipulation, digital manipulation of the sound. And people in the boat, they're always looking at the Zeppelin. And I was really struck by the idea of the future they had in the past and the idea of the future we have now. So that's what moved me to make this film. And I created this really fictional kind of ambience where you had the checked floor as a reference also to Duchamp and also to Alice in the Wonderland, and with the idea of displacing time, of creating this suspended space where time did not really exist or was a reference, you know. So people would stay there or even fall asleep during the presentation, and there was this huge machines crossing the video all the time. So I felt that I wanted the experience of vertical, and I needed to place support for the body. That's why I made the seats, because the view of the ocean is almost as if you were on a ship. So there is a kind of vertical because of the sound, and also the ocean and the reference of the horizon that is always unstable was very important for me. So I think of this as a floating world and this kind of instability. Let's go. Now going to the end, I have 5 minutes, right? Okay. This is São Paulo, and I decided just to talk about Oca. We talked about Oca, and the piece here that you have, the eclipses, the reference is the Oca building by Niemeyer, which is this pavilion here. This is the Ibirapuera Park in São Paulo. It was built in 1951 for the celebration of the 4th centennial of São Paulo, and this is the most recent building that was finally built, belonged to the original project. This is a theater that opens here also with shows for the outside. But this is the Bienal Pavilion, which was made for industrial fairs. And this is the Oca. The Oca is like a hut, and it's a very interesting project. I like this image when it was made. It's just this kind of ovni, you say that? Some ovni that comes from, extraterrestrial. UFO, right? That landed in São Paulo. And it's the Oca building used to be the museum for the aeronautics, is that how you say, with planes and stuff? But now it's nothing actually, because they don't know what to do with this building, but it's an amazing building because of the rounded, the curvy line of the exterior and these windows that bring daylight to the building. And most interesting is the fact that I don't have a picture here, but maybe I have, oops. I'll show it later, but the floors are floating, and they're just held by the columns that go from the basement to the upper floor. But the dome is actually, it doesn't touch the structure. So what I did in this piece that I'm going to show you, the Deviant cities, the Deviating series, I got Niemeyer's floor plans for the Oca, rebuilt it digitally. We constructed the whole architecture in 3D, and then mirrored the whole inside, and placed a camera inside to do a traveling traveling camera inside the building. And I created images that were totally amazing and totally away from the idea of the rationality of Niemeyer's building. And I wanted to create something that was very, deviant, right? Deviant. Yes, deviant, right. Sorry. So this is called, this work is from the social hieroglyph series, da série Hieróglifos Sociais. It's called Palazzo. And the way it works, these are panels that you can move around, and they, once they're closed, they are just stainless steel panels with two panels that move and one that doesn't move. And once you uncover them, you will see the Oca manipulated digitally, as I was telling you. Those are the images that we got from this travel adventure inside the reflected, mirrored Oca inside. So I wanted to break this rationality of this space and also to associate with mundane reality. So the title they all refer to motel in Rio. The motels are used in Brazil, were especially very popular in the 70s for love encounters, sex encounters. And so you don't go to a hotel, you go to a motel for different reasons, right? And it's very funny because there is a special motel architecture is something very, very unique in Brazil. So they all have names of very distant places, utopian places like Palazzo, Eden, Opium, and the names of the motels as well as their architecture are very interesting for that reason. And so these are the images that we were able to get from doing this kind of manipulation in the Oca building, using this reflective surface all over, like stainless steel and mirrors. And this is the exhibition with all the pieces. This is called Mesa Oca. Oca in Portuguese means void, means empty, without anything inside. So I call this piece Mesa Oca, Oca table, that means Oca empty. And this is also plexiglass. So once all the pieces were closed, they're like this, and then you start moving, all these nightmares seem to appear. And you can also close it down and have the grid, the modernist pattern to really organize life again. But once again, they're mirrored, they're reflected, so reality never returns back as a whole. So the idea of fragmentation of reality is also in the outside. And there you see the pieces we have here for the exhibition, the eclipses, which is a different kind of manipulation of the Oca building. What I did, I removed the dome. As you see, you can see I'll show you a better image. There you go. This is the Oca without the dome. That's exactly like that. And it's amazing because as you see here, Niemeyer made a little cut. It doesn't go out, stretch out with a pointed, he doesn't end this shape here exactly because that's where the dome goes, right? So in all the floors you can see this little edge here like this. And it's very simple structure because these are 3 floors in the basement with these columns and a ramp and the dome. It's very amazing. And what we did, we just placed very intense light inside, so that light would illuminate from inside to outside, transforming the whole space into this kind of nightmare, phantasmagoric kind of imagery. We did play a lot with these images, and it took me a long time to find out how I would come up with a piece that really could unfold another kind of strange quality to the images. So I decided to use mirror and give a little space between them, because then the reflection of the image, the small image, and the columns and the architecture on the mirror could give, by looking very closely, kind of three-dimensionality to it. So it was some kind of unfold that was, for me, very interesting. I deal a lot with images, but I'm always thinking what to do with them. I don't want them just to be images. I want them to become something else, something that intriguing, something that constructs a different experience of three-dimensionality, or returns back to architecture, or to the idea of space, or experience of space. So, there is Oka, you've seen. And the table is just a very simple action. We had the structure, as you saw, cut out. So it's the operation of emptying out the solid acrylic. Those are layers, crystal layers, and as each layer had the cutout of the structure, you can see there's a hole. It's empty, but this emptiness constructs a volume again. So the whole construction of the space is done by what's not there. It's by a removal. So here we are with different pieces, and I just want to do this like a film to see details. And I love these images. That's it. Thank you very much. I was trying to describe this piece, Eclipse, to Michael, or somebody that was setting up the work. I think it was you, no? And I was trying to explain what I wanted when I made it. I just wanted something. I wanted to have a feeling of holograph, even though not, but not. I didn't want to make it as a holography. Is that right to say? But I wanted to create that kind of experience. That was in my mind. But it's interesting because it's just a print, and it's like doing a print a print. But this series of work, I started to do them in 2005. I started to build construct the Oka. We started to manipulate this architecture digitally. And then all of a sudden I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to put mirrors everywhere and see what would happen. And then I do a lot of research, and I keep doing things that I don't even know where I'm going to end. And then we came out with these wonderful images. That was around 2007. And only in 2011, I really knew what I wanted. But it took me a long time to find the tiles, the steel tiles that connected to the idea of these. The pieces are 1 meter and 40, so it's about here. So your head is up and they're grounded on the floor. The gallerist in Rio she kept calling me. I have a collector, he wants to hang the piece, I want to sell it. Don't hang the piece, it has to be grounded. So the idea of it's not a painting, it's not a painting, it's not to look to the horizon, it's to look to the ground. The images are coming almost from the ground. When you open, you're looking to the floor. These images are coming from the ground. So there is this sense of, again, it's a panel, it has to be on the ground. The images are, you have to open it up or shut it down. And I associated the idea of silencing this deviant utopia, this thing that you can't control. It has the life of its own, and it's almost selvagem, undomesticated, And the idea that, the modernism goes totally on the other direction. And also, think with me, I come from this Baroque state. My first experience was in a Baroque city, looking at the passos in Congonhas do Campo by Aleijadinho. And what did we do with the Baroque? We forgot it. We totally eliminated from our sight, because our life and our world has to be rational, regulated, and we don't know what to do with everything that spills out. So the idea of making a container for these images was very important. But I'm talking about something else. You asked about holography, sorry. It's very seldom that I can keep going and collaborate with the same company for a long time. I have a very hard time to work in Brazil because I want pieces that are very well done. I want perfection. And this is utopia, right? So I have a very hard time to do that. So the collaboration are very good because I learned I learned that in order to be respected, you have to speak the other's language, their language. So I learned how to weld. I went to welding just for men school in Brazil, technical welding school. I was the first woman to get a degree in welding, and they didn't allow any woman to do that afterwards. And so I started to go to these industries because I made my own pieces in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. I was welding, I had my own shop at home, I had my own studio with a shop, but things got really hard for me because of my size, and it got, difficult, and I don't keep doing the same thing. I always change techniques, so I needed industries, but I learned how to speak their language and to be able to go in, and so they allow me to go in, and they think I'm going to do what they do, but when we're in the middle of the process, they find out that what I want to do is really not exactly what they usually do. So most of the times it's fun. They think it's fun. But then it's hard to keep going. I have actually two great companies in São Paulo, in the south of Brazil, and in Minas. The guy who I worked to make the stainless steel, the colored stainless steel, he learned how to do the engraving with me, and he opened up a new factory after the work. After the Parede Niemeyer, Maria Tavares, the cityscape with the words, the green one, he opened up a new factory, and we're friends forever, and he does anything that I want. So it's like we do share and collaborate a lot. He's making a new product, he calls me and sends me samples, and I make new work. I love that, it's very interesting. He makes new shapes, he sends to me, and I actually take that to the artisans in the north to do embroidery in steel. So I do a lot. I love these combinations, and of course he's a great guy, and that's a collaboration forever, I think. The other companies in the south with the plexiglass, the acrylic work, they're perfect. I really love to work with them, and they now are used to receive my projects. They're all by email. You send the project, and then we discuss the project for a long time, and then sometimes they make samples, send it to me. I don't even have to go there now. So this is very good. But the problem is that, of course, things are not stable all the time. Sometimes you go to a company, they do a good job, next time they don't. So it's hard, very hard. I don't know about here, maybe better. Okay. For example, I was talking about this steel company. At a certain, okay, what they did, they colored huge sheets of steel. The guy who invented it, created this process, he actually didn't know why and what he was going to do with that. And he has tried to sell this to architecture, to convince the steel company in Brazil to do what they do with aluminum in architecture, but it's very heavy, it's very expensive, there's not a chance he's going to do that. So when I met him, he didn't really know what he was going to become with the industry he just started. And the only thing that he did was to color these steel. So I proposed to work with him in order to engrave these words that I wanted to be in this reflective surface. I was researching how to write words in mirrors. When I found this guy, I said, this is wonderful. He can have a reflective surface like a mirror, color, and then we can write on it. And he didn't know how to do it. So we started that way. But then all of a sudden, when we were able to do that, he started to engrave decoration, make decoration, like decorative tiles, And then we had this idea of making tiles. So he developed a way to make the steel look like tiles. You saw the pieces. And then all of a sudden I decided that I wanted to make Victoria Regias, Burle Marx, huge Victorias, 3 meters wide. So I'm trying to open up this thing here because I went up to him and said, I want to make triangles, tiny ones, 2 by 2, this tiny like this. And he said, well, let's do it. And so he developed a machine to fold the steel in 2 by 2, and then we ended up doing this huge exhibition in Toyota with huge Victoria's Regias, 3 meters, 2 meters, and actually he went crazy. I remember I was traveling. I was doing the work in Sonsbeek in Holland, and he was stamping these tiles, and he said, I had to stop the whole production just to make the Victoria Regias, because there was no way he could put that in line of production. It took a lot of handwork. So he had a team of people doing hand by hand, creating ways to make it faster in a production line, but still was very, like an artisan doing it. So sometimes you can find people to do that, but I like this idea. I come to realize I just did a huge work in Fortaleza with artisans, working with artisans. And I think I came to realize during the whole process that everybody who looks at my work, they think that everything is done in an industry, that I just order it. But it's not most of the time. sometimes yes, like, I can do this with the acrylic company now because they've been trained to do my work, they understand what I want. But most of the time, it means to go in and stay in the company with the people, working with them. And then I learn a lot. I learn a lot of technique because different companies have different ways of doing the same thing. And so I've done a lot of curving steel tubes, pipes, works that were curly. And there are, I don't know how many techniques to develop the same thing. Once you do with wax inside and heat it, and the other one likes to cut and do the shape by welding. And so that is really nice because I learn with them, but they also learn, why do you do this? They keep asking you. And I say, I don't know, just to look, I guess. And so there are really interesting conversation that goes on all the time with these people. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would suggest that we conclude. We're a little bit over.
I think she had a question. I didn't hear, did you say their comfort or discomfort?
Their discomfort in that space. There's the quality of things being off or out of register. And if you could talk a little about creating that state that people will find themselves in and how that relates to awareness or consciousness.
Thank you for your question. I am aware that I do create, there is a play, I think. It's not easy. There is a play between seduction, I want to make it perfect, I want to make it beautiful, I want to make you desire it, want to either look or participate or be in it. But at the same time, there are tricky situations that destabilize your position. Because I also think that I play with things that you know very much. For example, you know how to go up a stairway, right? You know what a seat is. So I play with conventions, and I make very small rotations, like I displace from one place to another, or for example, the handles on the stairway, when you go up, first of all, I used tires with air. So the minute you put your first foot on the step, it goes like this. So you're aware that you have to take care. Some people just they go blah, blah, blah. The third step, they go like this and they hold because, something's going to happen. What's going to happen? So the work is always playing on this. What's going to happen? So because we are specialists, we know the conventions. They are all there. So what the work tries to do is to do this, a little bit. So by using this air tire, the four of them, sometimes they are flat a little bit and they're unstable. So the minute you start to walk up, the stair goes like this. It's not because it's unsafe, it's because it's telling you, be careful. Think about it, do you really want to go up? So the work is called exit. Where is the exit? There's no exit. You're facing a mirror, you're facing infinite, you're facing nothing, you can fall on the floor. So of course, you have to make these questions. What do I do? So it's, and then the handles are at your height when you first go in, but on the last step, to reach the platform and to reach the headphone that is purposely ahead, farther down, you have to decide if you're going to take your hands off or not. If you do, you have to stand. Now, it's just like, have you ever danced? It's like when you have to stay on your foot, then you have to really reach balance again, and then to reach the phone and because you imagine you're going to listen to a music, and then it's not a music. So then you're there, safe, but everybody's watching you. So it's kind of okay, it's seductive, you can go, you can do whatever you want, but look, this is happening. And once you're up there, your eyes are on 4 meters high, that's quite high. And you really can't move because you can fall. So I guess the work plays with that idea, and it is uncomfortable, but at the same time, I think it makes you slow down. We need to slow down in order to think about it, otherwise we don't see anything, we just go. That's what we do when we go to the bank and put the card on the machines, right? We just really quickly. We never think that the money is not going to be there anymore for us. Okay?
That's great. Thank you very much.